So system and information integrity. So this is basically assurance that information being accessed has not been meddled with or damaged by an error in the system. So basically, this is part of our CIA triad. This is the integrative piece of that CIA triad. All right. Let's see here. All right, and we can skip that one. All right, so basically level one. So here we do have a level one capability. So the first one here is flaw remediation, identify, report, and correct information and information system flaws in a timely manner. All right. Malicious code protection, provide protection from malicious code at appropriate locations within our systems. Update malicious code protection, so update that protection when new releases are available. And send system and file scanning, so periodic scans of information systems and real-time scans of files from external sources as files are downloaded, opened, or executed. So the first one here, flaw remediation. Let's see, I lost my mouse here. There it is. Determine if the time within which to identify system flaws is specified. Determine if the system flaws are identified within that frame. The time within which to report it is specified, and if they're reported within that, and then the time within which to correct the system flaw is specified, and system flaws are corrected within the specified time frame. All right. So the one that I think is a little bit fuzzy is basically identifying a system flaw. It may not be just something that you can do as an organization. It might involve communication from the vendor. So that one, it may be difficult to put a time frame on that one, but basically once it's identified, being able to report that system flaw and then being able to remediate it or mitigate it is those we can put a time frame on. Evidence here. So our system and information integrity policy, that's a new one that we haven't seen before. So again, talked about part of our CIA triad, integrity. And then procedures addressing flaw remediation. Again, our configuration management over here, because again, these flaws are going to be likely in our systems. A lot of them are going to be in our configurations, in our software, and being able to update our systems and patch our systems. List of flaws and vulnerabilities potentially affecting a system. And that's where you might have someone who in the organization is keeping up to date on all of the recent vulnerability news. So connecting to the CISA website and getting the bulletin of vulnerabilities and being able to identify, even on a weekly basis, what new vulnerabilities have shown up for any of the devices or the systems that we use. A list of recent security flaw remediation actions. So patches, service packs, hot fixes, software updates. Testing the results from the installation of software and firmware updates, installation and change control records, and then other relevant documents. I always like that, the always relevant other documents. System or network administrators, so that's always usually it's at the bottom of the list, but in this case, the top of the list, but anyone with information security, the person responsible for installing, configuring, and maintaining the system. And again, someone responsible for flaw remediation and personnel with configuration management responsibility. And what do we evaluate here? Again, the organizational process for identifying, reporting, and correcting, the organizational process for installing software and firmware updates, mechanisms for supporting or implementing reporting and system flaws, and then mechanisms for supporting or implementing testing software and firmware updates. So the first two are basically the processes, and then the last two get into implementing them. Malicious code protection. So here we want to have designated locations for malicious code protection identified, and then protection from malicious code at designated locations is provided. So again, our integrity policy over here, configuration management. So this is a new one here, procedures addressing malicious code protection, records of malicious code protection updates, malicious code protection mechanisms, And here's system security settings, record of actions initiated by malicious code protection mechanisms, scan results for malicious code protection mechanisms, and again, the others are repeated from earlier ones. Okay. Again, new one here, personnel installing, configuring, maintaining the system, and also here personnel with responsibility for malicious code protection. And again, how do we test it? Well, we test the processes that we mentioned, and then we test how they're implemented. All right. So it's almost a mirror image of the objectives, but in this case, we're testing them. Malicious, update malicious code protection. So our mechanisms for malicious code protection are updated when new releases are available. So it could be as simple as enterprise antivirus software. It could be antivirus and malware appliance. Again, evidence here. So again, our integrity policy, procedures for addressing malicious code protection mechanisms, records of protection updates. So basically you document when you update your anti-malware software, for example, you have a record of when that was updated for the organization. Let's see, anything new here? Again, scan results from malicious code protection mechanisms, record of actions initiated by malicious code protection mechanisms. Okay. And who do we interview? So again, the personnel with responsibility for malicious code protection is going to be in that list again. And here again, just a mirror of what we had for the audit objectives. We test the processes and we also test the mechanisms for implementing them. All right. System and file scanning. So we perform periodic scans of our systems and real-time scans of files from external sources as they're downloaded, opened, or executed. And again, that's always a good practice to keep us protected. So the frequency for malicious code scans is identified or defined. The malicious code scans are performed within that frequency, and then real-time code scans of files from external sources are performed. So evidence over here, some new ones here. Let's see. So these are all the same ones that we've been looking at over here. So nothing new over here, but again, integrity policy, procedures for malicious code protection mechanisms, and so on. And then document basically the updates and also document scan results and any actions taken. And here, again, the personnel with responsibility for malicious code protection. And again, in most organizations, I don't know about you, Eric, but in most organizations, that's just going to be one of our network administrators or system administrators or information security personnel. You're not going to have a dedicated person for malicious code protection.
Yeah. Does Stan have his hand up?
Yeah. Hi, thanks. Hey, thanks, Mike, for taking us through all of this. One of the things I'm thinking, right, the beauty of this type of training, in addition to the content, you say, wow, how can this fit in? I understand about assessing other organizations, but I'm just wondering, and maybe this was covered earlier, but if you or anyone in the class right now foresees higher ed institutions working towards CMMC compliance or certification for their operations, because I'm starting to wonder, we have so many other ways of assessing how good we're doing, you know, in security, but do we see this? I'm starting to wonder, like, this might be, even though we don't get involved perhaps in supply chain in the traditional aspect, we do work for, you know, the DOD, maybe with some research, or NSA. I don't know, does anyone, first of all, has anyone worked towards CMMC compliance in their own higher ed institution or organization, or do we foresee that it may go that way?
We have some contractors that we work with that are in the process of getting CMMC certified, and But at the college, again, maybe, so we're as a 2-year college, we do have NSA grants, and that comes out of the Office of Naval Research. So potentially that could qualify as acting as a DoD contractor in some fashion. So potentially we might have to meet some of these requirements, which again, it's an interesting, I'll have to discuss it with John, but definitely I could see research universities who are getting a lot of funding from directly from DoD and other sources like that, where this would be, there's even DoD scholarships now. So if you're getting a DoD scholarship, you are then acting in some fashion as a DoD contractor. It's not part of the supply chain, but you are basically contracted with DoD to do some work. So I think the better solution for colleges is to take a subset of these CMMC capabilities and use this internally to sort of vet your systems and to really build the confidence that, so it's almost like an internal audit that can be performed. And again, we have students that can do work studies, students that can do internships to help our IT staff to perform something like this. So I think that would be a great use of this and a great application of it, where the students would actually get to work with IT staff and implement this.
That's a great point, Mike. Hey, what on that note, what are, right, and I agree, I think this, I'm looking at this, I'm saying, yep, this fits, yep, this fits, and I could foresee that. But what other frameworks do you really see in higher ed? I'm trying to figure out a way here to reassess, and of course, you've always got the NIST frameworks, but is anyone using anything else that, for their own institutions that probably would map up to this already?
Jonathan, you have some ideas?
Yeah, so I know a lot of higher ed institutions use EDUCAUSE as a lot of their guidance, and it covers very similar stuff, but it's not as prescriptive of checking these check boxes, and then you have to have this item, this item, this item. So, but it does give the overall policies, and you have to have firewalls, and it gives the guidance, and so that's what I think what a lot of institutions use.
Okay.
But in response to your original question, so I work at an institution where we do have some federal grants, and we have a research arm. So part of the university I work for is Mercer University, but we have another company that's part of Mercer called MERC. It's Mercer Engineering Research Corporation. And so they do a ton of DoD contracts, and they will be doing CMMC. But some researchers from our chemistry department, they were awarded a DURIP grant. It's a DoD's University Research Instrumentation Program. And so that will eventually fall under that for MERC, but not for Mercer, which is above MERC. So it's
okay.
So it's basically like a it's almost like a commercial or nonprofit spinoff of the university.
Yeah. And the smaller piece will go through CMMC, but the larger piece, I'm a professor, so I'm not fully plugged into what the IT leadership is completely doing, but I haven't heard any plans for them to try to go through this, but it does make sense.
Yeah. All right. I didn't mean to, it's just going through this. I didn't want to lose the thought. Thank you, Mike. And hey, Jonathan, that EDUCAUSE framework or checklist, is that publicly available, or do I have to pay to be
You
part
have
of
to be a member.
Yeah, your school has to be a member of EDUCAUSE. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
so you might be able to get access to it through your school's membership if they're a member. Most schools are EDUCAUSE members, and their IT staff attend EDUCAUSE conferences, and they have workshops and webinars all the time.
Yeah, I'd love to see that list if anyone has it, and I'll reach out to them.
I bet
Thanks.
somebody at your school has the membership login. Like I don't have it, but I know people at my
Yeah.
school have it.
Yeah, I definitely don't have
I
it
don't have
either.
it either. Yeah, I see the webinars, and then I can never log into them because I'm not the point of contact for EDUCAUSE.
Right.
They go to conferences where they get wooed, and they get the really nice conferences instead of the academic conferences where it's go talk.
Yeah,
Right.
that's point, Stan. I'm going to bring that up to John because I think that's a really good a good target audience. So you know, I think not necessarily that the colleges have to show compliance, but I think just for their own, you know, their board of trustees and their own leadership to be able to say, you know, these are the rigorous, these are DoD requirements that we don't have to meet, but we've been able to demonstrate that we meet these requirements through an internal audit. All right. So let's see here. So again, this is fairly straightforward, I think. Let's see, just have a few more here. All right, I'm eating into your lunchtime over here. So system and information integrity, this is where level 2 comes in. So security alerts and advisories. And that's what I talked about earlier is someone should be monitoring security alerts and advisories, both generic and also from specific vendors that your organization works with. Monitor communication for attacks. So basically monitor your own systems, inbound and outbound communications traffic. And again, some of our intrusion detection systems are built in to do this and look for indicators of compromise or indicators of potential attacks, and then identify unauthorized use of organizational systems. All right. I'm not going to go through these, but you'll see again, some of the items are the same here. Okay. All right, and then lastly, I'm going to hand it off, but before I hand it off, I just want to go to
Hey,
I go,
Mike,
yes,
real quickly, are you in the room with John?
he's in the other room. I'm in his office.
There seems to be we have 2 objectives covered twice on the so you just did the one I was actually prepping for.
Okay.
And when I went back and looked, Kyle did the one that's actually after this, yours that was supposed to be assigned to. Kyle did it earlier. So I think they may have just gained their lunch back.
They may have gained their lunch back. All right, so why don't we we'll take the lunch break, and then we'll come back and we'll discuss with them exactly where we are and what we need to do.
Okay, we might be able to break early or something, or
John said we were going to end the day early anyway, so
okay, excellent.
all right, so this is the CISA website, and again, if you I was just at the Women in Cybersecurity conference in Cleveland, and Jen Easterly, who's now the director of CISA, she actually showed up and gave a lunchtime talk there, did a really nice job, and I mean really sort of a great speaker, really, you know, part of, you know, the same generation, and that, you know, she referenced the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and rock and roll. She had on jeans and a t-shirt and a jacket. Somebody threw her a Rubik's Cube. There was the swag bag had Rubik's Cubes. And so as she's talking on stage, she actually solved the Rubik's Cube while she's talking. So it was really impressive. But one of the things I like to point students to, and I do this with all of my security classes every week, is there are the CISA bulletins. And so let me see if I can find them. You can subscribe to the bulletins, and let's see here. So I'm not going to be able to find it now. But the bulletins, and so this is just a quick way to see here. So here, January. So this is just the archive of them, but you can get a summary of these every week. So if you look at the bulletin, oh, these are PDFs that are downloading. Basically, the bulletin shows you high severity vulnerabilities, medium and low, and it categorizes it by the vendor and the product. And so just a good practice to have somebody in the organization reviewing those bulletins to see if you know, if any products that you're using show up in those. But again, they're really doing under Jen Easterly, they've been really ramped up this communication with the public and with business entities to be able to get these known vulnerabilities out there and to get any of the remediations available out there. All right, so I'm going to stop right now, and I'm going to make Kyle host if I can. Not Kyle, Eric. Oh, it looks like he's on the phone with someone. He's probably asking that question now. All right. Eric, you're now host.
Okay, well, we're actually gonna take a 45-minute lunch. When we come back, we are going to do just risk assessment, which is the last objective for the day. And then John will come back on, wrap up, and we'll call it a day a little early, if that's okay with you people.
Okay, so if you looked at the emates, we have one on risk management and one on risk analysis. So these might be good ones to, incorporate if you want to use some of these in teaching these concepts, within your classes. So if we look at the risk management one, it looks something like this. And we just go into the whole idea of, high risk versus low risk and acceptability of risk. Give some examples. We introduce the term due care versus due diligence and give examples of what the difference might be, And then we do an overview of the basic terminology that's necessary to understand risk. So we talk about assets and the different types of assets, tangible versus intangible, and what a threat is, and a threat agent, and so on. So I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but the point is there's some pretty good material out there if you want to use these as part of the class, either in lecturing it or just reinforcing what you're teaching in the class with it. But we go through vulnerabilities and risk, and then countermeasures, security controls, impact, exposure, and then risk assessment. We give some examples of doing assessment. And then we have them actually work on some problems where they actually calculate risk and identify risk levels. So, again, the point is we got lots of, little tools here that you could use in teaching this as well. And then we do another one on analysis. So if you're looking for materials in that section, we've created a couple now. And then we've also got a nice case study that we'll be publishing that we did through the Center for Occupational Research and Development on managing risk within an organization from procurement to retirement of assets. So, all right. So the one thing I would ask everyone is if you can leave me in Canvas. Let's see, how can we do this in Canvas? Let's see. All right, is everyone an instructor in Canvas? Can everyone add like an announcement? You want to check if you can add an announcement?
No,
You cannot?
cannot.
All right, so what could I use to collect?
We can turn in an assignment. If you add an assignment, we can.
Yeah, maybe I'll do that. I'll put an assignment. All I'm looking for is your contact information and your mailing address so I can send out the honor coins. Okay, so I will put an assignment in here to give us your contact information, your address, and so on. And then we'll send out those honor coins from the University of Illinois Critical Infrastructure Center that supports that dashboard, and they're sort of helping us with this class. Okay. So usually in wrapping this up, we ask for some feedback. If it's answered questions you had about CMMC, or if you have any other questions, anything in particular else you'd be looking for in a class like this? All right, well, we will share, we'll turn all these into teachers so that you can actually download and use these materials if you want to put them in your Canvas or part of one of your courses. I mean, we know most people are not going to have a standalone course on CMMC, but you might put some of this in a management course, at least chapter 1 and 2. Hopefully you all have a better idea of what, the whole CUI regulation changes were and the updating of that. So for those of you that have worked with the federal government over the years and are familiar with all that other lexicon, you'll have a better feel for, that it's all fallen under one category now and how that works. Okay. I can tell you, we offer the SFS program, and we offered this class to all of our SFS scholars. And we've had multiple ones now that are working in the field come back and say, this really gave us some insight in what we could expect when we got to the place of our place of employment. So hopefully, if you're part of that program, you might want to use this as like we did like a workshop in the summer with this, with all of our SFS candidates. So, and I think it's worked. We only have one left to place. So all the rest of them have gotten jobs. So we're pretty happy. So, but any other comments, suggestions? Hopefully this gives you a good framework or a good point of reference. All right, so I got your.
Hey, John, this is Stan. It was nice to deep dive into this. I've heard of CMMC before, but I never really went through it. I think this will just inspire to, it wet my whistle. So now I can look at the docs more, So, I probably pay more attention to it, but I think
If
this
you want to get more insight, look into joining, with the CMMC accreditation board and doing some of their meetings, because they're really, they're changing a lot of these things today. But I will tell you something. They are looking to us to help them. They have 300,000 contractors to work with over the next,
Wow.
3-4 years. And I think we could play a major role in helping them, educate people from those businesses and so on, or providing students that can provide that information,
No, I'd be happy to participate, when and if this, how that moves forward. Hey, one quick question, and maybe this was covered, I think it was, all of the material in the Canvas course, we'll continue to have access to that, or?
Oh,
should
yeah.
we-
Yeah, you'll
Okay.
continue to have access.
All right, and I could download and use some of
Yeah,
it?
the only thing I want to tell you is that we've had 200 and some people go through this course. Okay. We are going to leave the CMMC 1 stuff up there. I know it's a little bit confusing, but we were asked to do that just so that there's a comparison of how the program's evolved. And if you want to show that, we're going to try to go back and mark everything as best we can, that this was CMMC 1, this is CMMC 2, but just be aware of that information is still out there, and we've been requested to leave it out there.
Okay.
I'm going to probably try to reorganize it so we stuff all that in, like, maybe the files or whatever. But be aware that it is still out there. So you need to, pay attention what's 1 and what's 2,
Yeah, no, that's good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, you'll
No,
be able to download any of these. So all the PowerPoints, all that, I'll go through as soon as we're done, and I'll make all you as instructors so you have full access. And you can even copy the whole course. You
Okay.
can do, a course copy and put it in your own course.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yep.
All right, I have to jump off, but I want to thank you, John, and all the instructors for, dedicating time. Just like us, we all have things going on, so do you, but we just get to sit and listen while you're actually engaging. It's a lot harder on your end.
Well, I hope you enjoy the diversity of the people we had come in and, teach it. Everyone has a little bit different style, but I think, at least I know when I'm on an all-day workshop, I like a change up, and it keeps my attention a little better if I have different people I'm listening to. So.
I hear you.
right.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
John, I think the next thing that would be interesting to see this is if there was some sort of like shadowing program to see, like, actually going out to an organization, conducting the assessment.
Okay.
I mean, I know that would be very involved and would probably.
That's actually a really good thing to bring up, because at the CMMC AB the other day, they were asking how businesses could help us, how we could help businesses and how they could help us. That might be something we want to look into. Yeah.
I mean, because whether I become an auditor, assessor, practitioner, or just I teach it, if
Sure.
I've done it, then I can really say, hey, when we're doing these interviews, we expected it would take, 45 minutes, but it took 3 days.
Well, I can just tell you, for those of you that are dealing with the NSA awards from the last couple of years, we're going to have some money left over this year. I mean, we've tried to spend it all down, but we're going to have some left over. There's just no way around it. That might be an initiative. We could go back to Lynn and ask if she could fund something like that,
That would be really cool. You just have to find a company willing to let a trainee essentially
Exactly.
follow them into their
The beauty
facility.
of this, so it is contract, it is the federal contract information and CUI. We're not asking to see the jewels of the company, right? We're looking at those specific things. And most of us are already contractors with NSA. So, I would think that would open up some doors for that. So. All
That'd be
right.
awesome. Thank you.